Bueno, aquí estamos en la unidad uno. ¿Quién soy yo? En la parte B. Empezamos ya. Let's get started, guys. Comenzamos con un repaso del vocabulario destacado de esta unidad. We're going to get started with a review of the highlighted vocab for this unit. Vamos. Artístico. Artístico. Inteligente. Inteligente. Lisa es inteligente. Make sure you're sociable. Sociable. La chica es sociable. Paciente. Again, not paciente. Paciente. Gracioso. Gracioso. Talentoso. Talentoso. Alicia Keys. Trabajador. Trabajador. Mi padre es deportista. Deportista. Otro vocabulario destacado que quiero señalar. Some other words. Now, guys, we're going to have a little repaso, a review about what we already know about gender and nouns. So we have masculine nouns and feminine nouns. Masculino y femenino. Masculine nouns usually have an O ending. That's what we learned to look for. And feminine nouns, usually an A ending. Like the word el ojo, the eye, and la boca, the mouth. Also, when nouns are male, they're obviously going to be masculine, like el profesor. No O ending, but it's still masculine because it's a male. And the opposite, female nouns, la profesora, and there you see the A ending. Also, we can look for the article at the beginning of the word. The little word el shows you a masculine noun. It matches a masculine noun. And la matches a feminine noun. That we already know. But now, dealing with our adjectives we've been learning, adjetivos, we have some new rules. They're pretty easy to remember based on what we already know. So we know that adjectives change. We've seen that. They're ending to match their noun. They don't have the gender, the noun does. Look at the purple. If you're a boy or you're talking about a boy or to a boy, you would refer to him as talentoso with an O. Look at the purple. And if you're a girl or you're talking about a girl or to a girl, you would refer to her as talentosa with an A. That also happens in other words like gracioso and graciosa. But some adjectives don't change with gender. So it doesn't matter what the gender of the noun is, you're still going to have inteligente with an E at the end. English E. And the same with the feminine. Inteligente. Sociable. Sociable. And also with this word deportista. The ista ending, look at the purple, does not change. Doesn't matter if it's masculine or feminine. It's a weird one. It's an exception. When you have an adjective ending in DOR, you don't need an O with the masculine form. But with the feminine form, you do add an A. So we have trabajador and trabajadora. And now we know about the gender of adjectives. So let's see some examples en contexto. Marta dice, she says, yo soy talentosa, because she's a girl. She's a feminine noun, she needs a feminine adjective. Kimberly, another feminine, es graciosa. Mateo, Matthew, es talentoso. Juan dice, he's talking about himself, yo no soy talentoso. María es inteligente. Remember, we don't change the E ending, the E ending in Spanish. What would this one be? José es sociable. Correcto. The A ending does not change. Karen es trabajadora with an A. Trabajadora. You tell me this one. El chico, the boy, es trabajador with a D-O-R. Fernando, what would he say? Now be careful with this one. Yo no soy What would it be? Yo no soy deportista. Ends with an A. It's an irregular. It's an exception. Toño, again a boy, es muy gracioso. To continue talking about grammar, we need to make sure that we talk about our artículos, our articles. So in Spanish, would we say el boca or la boca? El ojo or la ojo? El chico o la chico? We already know these two little words that come before nouns, el y la, and those are artículos. We already know them. And again, they're little words that come before nouns. But let's learn a couple more and a little more about these articles. Let's compare to English. In inglés, we have two articles. Well, kind of three. We have a definite article. Say it, definite. And that is the. And we have an indefinite article, which in English is a or n. So what's the difference? Think about it. So indefinite articles like the boy, the apple, the chair, we are being specific. We know a specific, a defined, definite, defined boy, apple, or chair that we want. We know which one we want. We know which one we're talking about. We're specific. But when we say a boy, an apple, a chair, we are talking in general. We don't know which one we want. We want any one. We want an undefined one. Indefinite, undefined. Notice when we have a word starting with a vowel, like A in apple, we use the word N instead of a. Maybe you didn't know that about English. But in español, it's a little different. We have to worry about gender. So we have the definite and indefinite articles, but now we have to worry about a masculine noun and a feminine noun. So again, we have specifics, but they have to change. If we're talking about a masculine noun like chico, we have to say el chico. If we're talking about a feminine noun, manzana, apple, we have to say la manzana. But that's when we know one we have in our mind, a specific one. What if we don't have anything in our mind? Then we're indefinite. Here's the new learning. We don't say el chico, but we still have a masculine article. We say un chico. Un chico. Un. If it's feminine, we don't say un, we say una. Una manzana. So our masculine definite article is el. Our masculine definite our masculine indefinite article is un. Our feminine definite article is la. Our feminine indefinite article is una. You can remember these. They kind of sound like one. You're not being specific. You just want one. Un, una. And in Spanish, we also have the word uno, which we use when we want to say one. Vemos algunos ejemplos. Let's look at some examples. Now notice the article that we use, whether it's definite or indefinite in this case, to refer to a specific girl, boy, person, or just any girl, boy, person. Let's take a look. Carmen. Carmen es una chica graciosa. Now notice, una is feminine, chica is feminine, and graciosa is feminine. Your article and your adjective match your noun. Una chica graciosa. So she's just any funny girl. We know that she is a funny girl in English. Not the funny girl specifically. Juan dice, he says, yo soy un chico inteligente. Un chico inteligente. Diego es el chico talentoso ahí. Diego es el chico talentoso ahí. So we're pointing to a place with ahí. We're saying there. So in that case, we can have a specific, definite person in mind. He is the funny boy over there. María no es una chica seria. Again, matching the indefinite article to the noun, una chica. Yo soy una persona simpática. Now, this one's interesting because a boy can say it, but a girl can say it too. It looks feminine, una persona simpática, but that's just because the word persona is always feminine, whether it's a boy persona or a girl persona. It's one of those weird words in Spanish that break the rule, but because usually it would change. But with persona, if you're saying you're a person, a nice person, a serious person, it's always going to be feminine, even if you're a boy. Let's do one. You tell me. Clara es chica graciosa. Clara es una chica graciosa. Muy bien. Juan or John. John es un chico inteligente. Indefinite article masculine, un. Now you have two things to fix. Antonio es Did you get it? Antonio es un chico deportista, because that ista ending doesn't change. Muy bien. Bueno, hablamos un poquito de la cultura hispana. Let's talk a little bit about culture with this unit, Hispanic culture. Comenzamos con Frida Kahlo. Frida Kahlo es una artista mexicana. Es una artista mexicana. Remember the word order. It looks like an artist Mexican, but it's really a Mexican artist. And the word artista is a noun, a sustantivo, but it's very close to and connected to artística, which is an adjective. She lived from 1907 to 1954. And she had a very interesting life. Her story is una historia de amor, a love story. But you could also say that she had una vida muy trágica, a very tragic life. You can see some pictures of her, and she had a very interesting appearance. She dressed very authentically at that time in clothes that were worn historically by people in Mexico. And that's the kind of look she wanted. She wanted a very historical, very indigenous, native look. And her husband, the love of her life, Diego Rivera, you can see in the picture there, they had a very kind of crazy romance. And she was also very sick in her life. She had an accident early on in her life that made her very sick and in hospitals all throughout her life. You can see some paintings here, some of her more famous paintings, and her paintings are all over the world. But you can see that one. Who's that on her forehead with the third eye? Notice the emotion in her face. Okay? Some of you probably recognize that's Diego. That's her husband. So, what happened there? What's the story behind the painting? What's the inspiration? You can see she painted herself a lot. And she often painted the eyebrows coming together. Some might criticize that because in our culture and in Hispanic culture, it's unacceptable to have your eyebrows come together. But she didn't really see it that way, and you could say maybe she didn't really care. You can also see the influence of her being sick, like in this top right-hand photo, and also the bottom one. She viewed her body as something very fragile, and it was a source of pain for her, but she used it to inspire her art. You can find out more about Frida by going online, looking at Wikipedia, looking at some of her other paintings, and there's also a movie called Frida, which stars Salma Hayek. It's a very well-reviewed movie, if your parents approve of you watching some of her paintings. Bueno, hablamos de Frida. ¿Cómo es Frida Kahlo? Now I'm going to need you guys to reply, to interact with this. These are yes or no questions, so the appropriate answer would be sí o no. Frida Kahlo. ¿Frida es artística? ¿Sí o no? ¿Frida es artística? Que sí, Frida es muy artística. ¿Frida es deportista? ¿Frida es deportista? Frida es una mujer interesante. Look at that word, that's a cognate. We might not know that one. Interesante. Interesting. ¿Es una mujer interesante? ¿Sí o no? ¿Es reservada, Frida? ¿Es reservada? ¿Ella es reservada? ¿Sí o no? ¿Frida es una mujer atrevida? ¿Frida es una mujer atrevida? ¿Sí o no? ¿Frida es valiente? Now look at that. Valiente. That's a cognate too in English. Valiant. Okay? But there's a more common word. Brave. ¿Es valiente ella? ¿Sí o no? ¿Frida es impaciente? Ella es impaciente. ¿Sí o no? Frida es inspiradora. Now that's a new word too. Look at that. Frida es inspiradora. What do you think that means? ¿Sí o no? ¿Es inspiradora? Now let's finish this sentence. Frida Kahlo fue, she was. There's an article there. Okay, let's see if you were right. Frida Kahlo fue una mujer, woman, talentosa, with an A. Frida Kahlo fue una mujer talentosa. Muy bien. We'll talk about some of those questions in class about Frida. Continuing with another famous personaje, un personaje muy famoso en Latinoamérica, in Latin America. Hablamos de Simón Bolívar. Simón Bolívar fue un revolucionario sudamericano. Un revolucionario sudamericano. Couple of cognates there. Revolutionary, you probably guessed that, okay? Sudamericano is from South America. You can see his picture there, okay? Early on in history, he lived from 1783 to 1830. Think of what was happening, or what had just happened in the United States in 1783. He's known in Sudamerica as El Libertador. Think about what that means. Libertador. What word do you see in there? Liberator. He was the liberator. Definite article. The liberator. Now, he's known as one of the liberators of the northern part, la parte norte de Sudamérica, that you can see off to the right there, okay? Today, which is about 6 countries: Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia, okay? So he's a hero in that part of the world, an independence hero, because he had a vision of those countries, that area, being independent from what country? From what empire? Think about it, guys. Okay, Spain. Yes, most of you probably guessed that. From Spain. The Latin American countries, all 20 of them, became independent from Spain. They were all part of Spain's empire. Simón Bolívar was one of the main figures that led the revolution, and he also was a war hero. Now he became un líder, okay, indefinite article, cognate, a leader after the war. He was the first president, or some might say dictator, of that area. Now those countries didn't exist. They came about later. They split into 6 countries. But he really wanted them to be one country with sort of like states. But that ultimately didn't happen. They disagreed and they split up after he died. But he was the first leader of that part of South America. And there's even one of the countries that became after he died is named after him. ¿Cuál? Which country? ¿Cuál? Bolivia. Okay, that's pretty obvious. Bolívar, Bolivia. And his ideas and his writings still inspire a lot of modern politicians or políticos in South America. One of which is the president of Venezuela. Very controversial guy. He's in the news. His name is Hugo Chavez, but he's very, very inspired by Simón Bolívar. ¿Cómo es Simón Bolívar? ¿Sí o no? ¿Simón Bolívar es perezoso? ¿Él es perezoso? ¿Sí o no? ¿Él es inteligente? ¿Simón es inteligente? ¿Sí o no? ¿Simón es un hombre? Man. A man. ¿Importante? Look at that word. Importante. ¿Simón es un hombre importante? ¿Sí o no? ¿Simón es atrevido? ¿Es atrevido Simón? ¿Sí o no? Atrevido. ¿Simón no es famoso? ¿Él no es famoso? ¿Sí o no? ¿Simón es importante? ¿Es importante? Simón, now let's finish this one. Simón es what'd you say? Simón es un hombre, indefinite article, trabajador. D-O-R, trabajador. Es un hombre trabajador. Now guys, think about this a little bit to compare. In our history, we have a similar figure who had a vision leading our country in revolution against a European empire. Not Spain, but England. Here in the United States. And also became the first leader of our country. Who is the similar figure? Who is the similar figure to Simón Bolívar? Lastly, we're going to talk about a piece of clothing known as el huipil. Let's take a look. Maybe you've seen these in movies or in pictures, or even in your community. It is a traditional piece of clothing worn by indígenas, okay, indigenous women, native women, women with history longer than the Europeans in Mexico and Guatemala, okay? So it existed way before the Europeans got here 500 years ago. Very old piece of culture that still exists. So in the countries of modern-day Mexico and Guatemala. Take a look at those pictures. Have you seen anything like that before? Look at the hair on the first one. Kind of looks like what Frida wore in her hair, and also what she wore. That was her goal. They're worn by some every day that still live very close to the historic native Indian culture. And others just wear them on traditional ceremonies and for special days, holidays, etc. So take a look at the picture on the right there. So it has roots with the Maya, the ancient Maya. So that's why it's in Mexico and Guatemala. It's an expresión de historia, tradición y comunidad, and even personalidad. People will sew these with their own symbols, or their community symbols, okay? Flowers, shapes, okay? And special colors, colores, okay? That have meaning to them personally, or to their family, or their community, okay? So there's no two that are alike. They're very different, and they're made to be different. Okay? And you can see there are some on display there. El huipil. Okay? So it's a very ancient, very old cultural piece of clothing that comes from the indigenous people hundreds of years ago. ¿Cómo te expresas tu personalidad con tu ropa? Okay, with your clothes. How do you express your personality? Okay? We still do some similar things with patterns, with colors. Okay? Think about how that compares. Alright, this is the end of the presentation. Hopefully it was a good review for you. If you have any questions, dígame pues. Adiós.